Hey, welcome to the Fantasy Football Game Plan. It's week 8. We are going to run down the DFS main slate for DraftKings. We're going to answer your questions. Do you need Jonathan Taylor, who is priced at 9,500 this week, or do you need Bijan Robinson at 8,800? And how about Jamar Chase, who is playing the Jets with his coming off his 23 target week? Where can you pay up this week, and where can you find the value plays so you can afford everyone that you want to stack into your lineups? Hit subscribe, drop us a comment with your favorite plays, and we're going to jump into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into those 4K wide receivers that we can use to fill out our wide receivers. We're also going to be looking at ways we can fade those top running backs too.
Awesome. It's also National Tight Ends Day this Sunday. Last year, we saw lots of tight ends scoring. What do you think about this year?
Yeah, I don't know who did the scheduling for this and why we have a slate without McBride, Bowers, Kelsey, Kraft, and Laporta on National Tight Ends Day, but we do have some fun rookie tight end options that we'll get into as well.
We do. I think that's one of my pay down places so I can pay up in other places. Why is picking player props so much easier than picking a DFS lineup?
Yeah, we've been killing it on the props. It's been a very strong start to the season. Luckily, kind of balancing out some DFS losses, but sometimes I wonder about just taking 2 touchdown parlays on who I'm putting in these lineups instead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the teams on bye this week, we've got 6 teams on bye. This is a big bye week. We've got Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, the LA Rams, and Seattle all on bye. Sunday night game is Green Bay at Pittsburgh, and Monday night game is Washington at Kansas City. So all 10 of those teams are off of the main slate. If you're looking for them, they're not going to be there. Lucky for us, we get to sleep in this Sunday. We have no European game to watch at 9:30. So let's jump into our first game. Our highest point total this week is Chicago at Baltimore. Baltimore's favored by 6.5. Over unders 50.5. Baltimore's coming in off of their bye week. That almost a touchdown favorite is surprising me a little bit.
Yeah, the books must be thinking that Lamar Jackson returns in this one because I can't think they would be a touchdown favorite. It's a 1-5 team too. They have not looked that strong to begin the season.
They haven't. They are getting back a lot of defensive players and other players as well. So I do like them coming in off this bye week, but a touchdown favorite is a little bit surprising to me. I'm not real sure we're going to see Lamar Jackson either. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, it was very concerning that after the bye week, he missed the first practice. And if he's not out there throughout these next couple practices, we haven't gotten Wednesday's report yet or Thursday's, but something to monitor and also just follow the lines. You know, if you see that line jump to a 2.5, 3 point spread, or even Chicago being favored, books telling you that Jackson's not playing.
Yeah. Well, let's go with the assumption that it is 6.5 point Baltimore favorites. Then Derrick Henry, you've got to like a home heavy favorite running back. And we always like Derrick Henry, right?
And we don't have to pay up for him this late. Like, it's kind of weird. We're seeing, I mean, we'll get to Jonathan Taylor at 9,500, but 6K for Derrick Henry. And we know this player. I don't think he's really showing regression for age. You know, he's still averaging 5 yards per carry, but they're just losing games. And we know how Derrick Henry does and wins compared to losses. And he just hasn't had that game script yet. But if we get a positive game script, if they're actually truly a touchdown better than the Lions, then 6K feels like a steal for Derrick Henry.
It definitely does. Let's jump back to we talked a little bit about Lamar Jackson, but on the other side, Caleb Williams. Any interest in Caleb?
I am a little bit. I did think about stacking up Chicago's side just because of Baltimore's secondary. It's been so banged up and they've been allowing points all over to wide receivers. And I think there's a very talented wide receiving core for Chicago. Um, Typically, Baltimore has been giving up a lot of points to that slot position, so I am interested in DJ Moore and Luther Burden, but also Rome Odunze is kind of due for that bounce back game, so maybe stacking up 2 of those options with Caleb.
Yeah, last week I went with DeAndre Swift. He did not disappoint me, scoring almost 24 fantasy points. So at his price, he paid for himself. We are starting to see that share in the backfield, though, for the Chicago running backs. It seemed like it was all Swift, but now Kyle Monangai is also getting quite a bit of carries. So last week it was Swift 19 carries and Monangai 13 carries, and they both received targets. Do you think that we're going to see more and more of that share?
I think they
Or do
do
you,
like that balance, but they're not going to be running it 40 times a game. That was kind of a script due to the weather. It was a rainy, windy day in Chicago there. So I think they wanted to win no matter what was kind of the goal for Ben Johnson. If it took taking it to the ground and just rushing repeatedly against the Saints, then that's what it took to make sure they got out with a win. But I think we'll see some more pass happy gains scripts moving forward.
Yeah, I think we see them bounce back a little bit in this game as well. I still think Odunze's a little bit priced too high for me at 6,300. We haven't really seen Luther Burton pop too much, so I'm probably not going in on these receivers. They're talented, but I also feel like they're overpriced in this situation.
Yeah. One other thing to note for just Derrick Henry and a stat I thought was kind of ridiculous. Right now, the Bears are 32nd in yards before contact allowed, and the Ravens are 7th in yards before contact forced. So that is just a mismatch on that offensive line, and does set up well as long as they have the game script.
Yeah, I maybe they'll get it. I hopefully we're going to get Lamar Jackson back. This isn't the game I'm going in a whole lot on. I feel like it's just a game I should be more excited about, and we just haven't seen the Ravens yet, and I'm hopeful, but I kind of want to see something before I go all in on it. I was pretty surprised when this was a 50-point total game.
Yeah, I think I like some pieces here, but I definitely see a lot of routes that we get the under.
Yeah, I do too. All right, let's move it on to the Dallas Cowboys at the Denver Broncos. Denver's favored by 3.5 at home, and the over-under is also 50.5.
Dallas has just been the recipe for great fantasy games because they are not covering anyone on defense and they are setting the pace with their offense too. So Bo Nix was able to save a terrible outing in that fourth quarter last week. It was remarkable, but do you think he can keep up that momentum against the Dallas defense, or was that kind of showing some cracks?
Well, it'll be certainly interesting if he plays all 4 quarters instead of just one
Yeah,
quarter of the game. He was worth almost 40 DraftKings points last week, which is incredible. His salary did change. He went up 400. He's now 6K. I think he can do it again. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. We had him on our prop bets because I thought he was going to hit his 18.5 scrambling yards. And he did eventually in the fourth quarter. But until they started moving him, they weren't having any success. And hopefully that's what they see. And what I saw on games previously and earlier in the season was when they move Bo Nix, they're more successful. Now, they may not have to do that against the Cowboys, but that's the question. Can the Cowboys put any pressure on Nix to make him move and make him run for 2 more touchdowns this week?
I do like Knicks. I do think they're going to try to learn from that tape and what they were actually successful against the Giants. I also think these corners for Dallas are just taking way too many chances, so it opens up Sutton and Franklin. But switching back to the other side, Dak Prescott has just been playing out of his mind. Do you
This
like stacking him up on the other side, or are you kind of more on the Denver side?
I'm more on the Denver side because I like that rushing upside. Last week, he was 264 yards and passed for 3 touchdowns, and he's still not quite worth 24 points, which doesn't pay for his 6,500 price tag. I just don't get the rushing upside with him. And without that, I mean, he's got to throw for 4 touchdowns. I don't know that he can throw for 4 touchdowns against the Broncos defense, which is better than defenses that they've been going up against.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm out on Dak. I will consider Bo Nix, but in the lineups that I've been building, I'll tell you that I've been paying down at quarterback. There are quarterbacks that are cheap that I like, and then there are a lot of expensive parts out there that I want to pay for.
The only thing I like about the Broncos side and why it's like an attractive stacking option this week feels like I've really been drawn to multiple wide receivers coming with my quarterback. And so if you start getting kind of strange, getting into those deeper options, moving off from just Cortland Sutton, but pairing it with a Troy Franklin or a Marvin Mims, then you start to get those savings in this game. But it is very hard to do that on the Dallas side with just paying up for Lamb and Pickens, and even Ferguson's really expensive.
Yeah, they're all really expensive. George Pickens did drop, but if you look at the flex position here, and on both the Dallas and the Denver side, all of these players are seeing price increases with the exception of Pickens. Pickens is the only one on either side that dropped. This is definitely where you're going to end up paying if you go into this game. They're all
Yeah,
increased, which DraftKings is telling us something.
and I actually like Pickens here. I feel like Pat Surtain is one of the best corners in the entire league at taking away your number one option, or at least just limiting it and saying you're going to beat us in another way. And so if he's shadowing CeeDee Lamb, I know they're going to move CeeDee Lamb around, but if he's primarily covering him, then I think it will open up Pickens on some of those man press routes.
Yeah, I think so as well. On the running back side, I don't really like Javonte Williams going against the Denver defense. I think they'll be more focused on passing the ball. They'll still run Javonte, but I don't think he's going to see a whole lot of success. Scatterboo last week saw a little bit of success going against the Broncos defense, but I'm more interested in my home running back, J.K. Dobbins. The only worry there is, I mean, we usually like home running backs because they get a lead and now they just want to run out the clock. And I see this as a back and forth game, not as my home team gets a pretty big lead and just wants to run out the clock, which is when we see all the garbage time for our running backs. But I still like J.K. Dobbins. The Cowboys have given up so much on the ground that it's hard not to like him at 5,800.
Yeah. Typically, a defense has like one weakness, and they try to kind of bait the team into going one way or another. But the Cowboys are weak to both the passing attack and the rushing attack, and I think J.K. Dobbins can be critical for Denver's success.
Yeah, so if you got to pick CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, you can only have one.
I think I'm going Pickens in this matchup. I want that secondary cornerback matchup, and Pickens has just looked amazing all year long. You know,
He
even his
has.
output last week, where CeeDee Lamb had the one breakaway touchdown. He had that 74-yard touchdown. If you take away that one route, I mean, he had like 40 yards on the day. So Pickens was heavily involved. He still got 6 targets, and I'll take my chances with Pickens.
Me too. I agree with you. And I'll save my $700 because he's $700 cheaper this week. And we need all the savings that we can get. Let's
Yeah.
move on to the Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are favored by 14. Over-unders 47. A 30.5 point total for the Colts.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's what they've been doing all year long, is just beating up on these bad teams.
let's just get the quarterbacks quickly out of the way because personally, I'm not into either Daniel Jones or Cameron Ward in this matchup. The Colts should be running the ball. Maybe obviously they're going to pass some, but I have a little bit of interest in the Colts wide receivers, maybe Pittman or Alec. I'm more interested in Alec Pierce just as that one off. You get a big pass and you can pay for yourself. Alec Pierce is only 4,600. And if he can pull off, a 50-yard pass for a touchdown, he's good.
Yeah, in Pierce, back on like Cam Ward, I think he is really just unplayable in DFS. He's kind of like year one Bryce Young, where there is just not enough talent around him, and he also doesn't run the ball. So there's just no way for him to ever be popping up into these lineups.
Exactly. And Daniel Jones isn't going to have to pull off anything heroic in this matchup. So let's move on to everyone else. Let's go to the big one. Jonathan Taylor, $9,500.
Yeah, $9,500. That is an insane price. And we need a 40, minimum 40 points to pay off that price. And that would be one of the best fantasy finishes of any player all year long. Do we think he had 3 touchdowns the last time they played the Titans, but he would need to do it again, basically.
The problem is 3 doesn't pay for it. He had
Yeah.
3 touchdowns last week. He only had 94 yards last week. That was maybe on rushing yards, and that may have been the issue that kept his points down. He didn't get into that bonus point range. He had also 3 receptions for 38 yards. and he ended up worth 34 points. But like you said, we need a minimum of 40 where we really need to be more up 45, maybe even 50. And 50 is like the big season performance. This is a divisional game. Everyone's been taking it kind of easy on the Titans a little bit, I feel like, and not running up the score that much. I just don't think see how Taylor can pay for himself.
I don't see it either. I mean, we also have a good chance of against that defense, like just generating some negative plays for the Titans and giving the Colts shorter fields. So there's less possible points there, or even like a defensive score, which is just going to bring down the pace even more. So I don't think he can fully pay off that ceiling for a $9,500 price.
Yeah, I don't either. Any other, like I said, I'm interested in Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman, mostly Pierce because he's cheaper and I'm just looking for that one big play. I'm staying away from the Titans wide receivers. Tyler Lockett asked release this week and was granted his release. So he is no longer with the team and Ridley's still out.
Yeah,
We're
I
we've
think
got
that
some cheap
does.
wide receivers there.
Yeah. The one note on Pittman and Pierce is just monitor the Josh Downs news. I think that really helps their production if he's out with a concussion to just consolidate those targets. If he's in there, I think it's too many mouths to feed for me in a game they're probably not going to have to do much.
Yeah.
And then with that banged up wide receiving core for the Titans, Lockett's now released and Ridley's still nursing an injury. I am very interested in Alec Iomanner. He's kind of shown up as just target share for those Titans, and there should be a bunch of garbage time in this game. We saw Herbert amass like 400 total yards just in garbage time, and the Colts have a really depleted secondary. They are down um, like four of their top five corners, and there's really not a lot of other places for this ball to go. So Iomanner's cheap. If you want a savings option, he is there at 3,900.
Yeah, I think every week you bring up his name. I think you like him a little bit, or you're waiting for his big week. I would toss out Van Jefferson. I like Van Jefferson a little bit better, and he's only 3,300. He's even less than Io Manor. So those are the hard part for me. And this happens in more than one game on this slate. I hate picking players on teams that are this bad. It
Oh
is
yeah.
really, you can't. I like going to those that I know are going to get the ball repeatedly, and there's just nobody in this Titans team that I feel that way other than maybe Tony Pollard, but now he's splitting with Tyjae Spears as well, and I think I can just stay away from it.
I do think that's a good point too, because we get these teams like the Chargers last week against the Colts, where they're talented enough, they are down three scores, they score, suddenly it's a 14-point game, and you can keep talking like if we just get a stop, it'll be competitive. And so like they're consistently pushed and they have the talent to back it up. I feel like some of these worst teams just kind of roll over in the second half and they're
Yeah.
like, we got 10 points. We'll move on to next week. And that's about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to move on to the next game. The
Oh,
Tampa Bay Buccaneers at New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay's favored by 4. Over under is 46.5. Let's start off with Baker Mayfield. Monday night was really tough for me to watch. But talk about a team that never gave up. The Bucks never gave up in that game. I had to watch it to the end because even though it looked like they were just getting killed, they were just in the game. And like you were just saying, they have enough talent that they can score 14 points in a minute. So you had to stay on your toes for this one. But that's all usually led by Baker Mayfield, who was not having a good game on Monday night. Can he bounce back here and can he pay for 6,400? On the other
yeah.
side, the Saints can. They are oddly a 1-6 team that doesn't play like a 1-6 team.
Yeah. We finally saw Rattler make some mistakes against Chicago and turn the ball over three times or have three picks last year, which was three more than, well, he had one coming into the game. So that was kind of ridiculous, but it was also kind of a weird, windy game. And I do like Baker here as kind of a bounce back spot. I think that Lions game was kind of a tough atmosphere, and they had a really banged up wide receiving options. Hopefully, Egbuka is a little bit more healthy, and we're still probably not getting Godwin, but I think here against the Saints, it is going to look a lot better.
Yeah, I think so too, and I do like him to bounce back in this game and to, get back into Baker being Baker. He loves being on the road. He's not an underdog in this game though, cuz road underdog is really where he tends to shine for some reason. But coming off of Monday night, I think he can bounce here, and I think we know he can pay for 6400 if he gets hot.
Oh
And the
yeah,
Saints can do the same too. So I'm interested in both of these quarterbacks. I like Rattler at 4700 going against the Tampa Bay defense who is giving it up in the air. And I can see Rattler supporting both Olave or Rashid Shaheed this week. How about you?
me too. And coming into the season, we highlighted just like these NFC South division games. Sometimes just go nuclear, and those are like the 70 point totals. I think that Shaheed is going to have a much better performance. We saw Olave have 2 touchdowns last week, but
Yeah.
I kind of like both of them here in this spot. It is really just pick and choose. I'm not probably stacking with both of them. I feel like typically there isn't enough in this passing game to support both of them, and they kind of take away from one another when one has a good game. So that's how I'm choosing to stack up the New Orleans side.
They do. It's odd. I feel like they both get targets, but one of them ends up with all the touchdowns.
Yeah,
Olave is more expensive at 5,800 this week, and Shaheed is down at 4,700. Both of them got bumped up this with their prices a little bit this week. Oh, let's go to the running backs. So Kendre Miller is gone for the year. We thought he was going to make it through a season, but he's not. He has a torn ACL. So now they are down to Kamara, who hasn't shown us a lot. Do you like him at all?
I probably don't. It was a bummer about Kendre Miller. He was looking pretty good, and he was finally getting a shot. But I think this year, the theme for the Saints is just figuring out what pieces they have moving forward and who's going to be a part of this franchise in the next couple of years. They spent a draft pick on Devin Neal, a rookie running back. So I think they're going to work him in and just see what they have there. And he'll probably take those Kendre Miller touches.
He's not even on my list here, so I'm gonna have to go searching for him. It'll be interesting to see, yeah, if he gets the extra touches. I have interest in Kamara. I mean, we just saw what Jameer Gibbs did to this Bucks defense, and he ran all over them. If Kamara can get into space like Gibbs did, and they like to play Kamara in a similar fashion, then he too could have a big day unless the Bucks can figure out how to stop that. The thing is it is it going to work out for him?
Yeah, I'm kind of not on that boat, especially with Taysom Hill in near the goal line now. It's just another person that can take away those touchdowns that really haven't been coming to Kamara's way already. I am interested a little bit in the Bucks running back room, even though Rashad White hasn't been that efficient, and he's still 6,400 isn't cheap. I mean, it's 400 more than Derrick Henry this week.
He is. It looks like no Bucky Irving. He's already been ruled out for week 8, and they get a bye in week 9, so hopefully we'll get a pretty healthy Bucky coming back in week 10. I will bring up last year's game. This was the game that Sean Tucker, the running back for the Bucks, stepped into and had over 30 fantasy points and just went crazy on the New Orleans Saints. And it was Rashad White who wasn't playing that game. So Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker just went nuts. I'm curious if they remember that and lean a little bit more on Sean Tucker. I think it's going to come down to that game script. So can they get ahead? And if they can, but that game last year they weren't ahead. It was back and forth. It was a crazy game. It was just lots of scoring. And so that has me probably more interested in this game than I should be because I'm just remembering last year's game going, "Oh, can they repeat that?"
Yeah, a little bit different squads, but I also kind of have similar visions. But I'm more focused on the Tampa Bay wide receiving options. Like we do have a bunch of injuries, but I think those injuries in a slate where we're looking for value sets up perfectly. Where we have Igbuka, he's 7K, he's priced up. But all those options that are the secondary options, if we do think we get a shootout here, Sterling Shepard or Tez Johnson has to come through. I'm more on the Tez Johnson side. I thought he's actually been one of those players that's kind of popped in the past couple weeks. He made a great play for the touchdown against Detroit. And I think at 4,300, he will start to see more and more targets come his way with those injuries.
Yeah, at 4,300, he's a great play. Whether you stack this game or not, 4,300, he is a great player to plug into your lineups and save so you can pay up for those running backs that we're paying up for this week, it seems like. And Emeka Ibuka doesn't seem to be on the same page as Baker Mayfield lately. Hopefully, we'll see him come back and be a little bit stronger. He was seeing a ton of targets last week, but we also saw Baker Mayfield throw it 50 times. I don't think we see Baker throwing it 50 times this week, and that's going to make it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, whichever feel you're going with, Tez Johnson or Sterling Shepard, both around the $4,500 range, those are great plugins. I'm going to toss out there Cade Otton as well. Cade Otton saw 9 targets last week and caught 7 of them, and he was worth 13.5 fantasy points. He's only 3,400. So on National Tight Ends Day at 3,400, I think he's a great play in this weak wide receiving room for the Bucs.
He is also kind of due for that touchdown to come his way. He really hasn't been found that way, but he's heavily used in the end zone.
Yeah, he always has that one game, and then we're like, oh yeah, Cade Otton. Why weren't we all playing him? All right, let's move on to another exciting one. Buffalo Bills at the Carolina Panthers. Buffalo is favored by 7.5, and over/under is 46.5. Panthers can get no respect at their 4-3 record, I guess. At home too. It's the at-home Carolina Panthers coming off of a road win.
Yeah, and yeah, they have the same amount of wins. It also feels like it's been forever since we've had a chance to take Buffalo. Maybe it's just because they always get the primetime games, then they have their bye. But I feel like I've seen Josh Allen on a slate once all year.
I do too. Well, let's talk about Josh Allen and the quarterbacks. Are you taking Josh Allen? He's priced up at 7,500. I'm not paying that much for my quarterback. He's going to have to do a lot to pay for that, but Josh Allen could do it. Or do you like Bryce Young or Andy Dalton? I don't think Bryce Young is playing. Is he definitely out?
Bryce Young is going to be out. It's looking like Dalton. I don't think it's been confirmed yet. They're still giving him a chance to play, but it was a high ankle sprain for him, and we typically see players miss multiple weeks for that.
Yeah. So let's assume we're getting Andy Dalton and Josh Allen. Do you have interest in either?
Probably not Josh Allen, just because his price is so high, and the thing about the Panthers is they do play at a slower pace, too. So once you have that high price, you really just don't have the ceiling. You don't have enough plays, and I don't think, if they do have that game script where they get ahead, then they're not going to be rushing Josh Allen as much.
No, they're not. I agree. What about Andy Dalton? Is Andy Dalton a passing upgrade for the wide receivers?
I think for specific matchups, I don't think Bryce Young has been really bad this year, but I don't think Dalton's going to be much of a drop off. And Dalton really likes to rocket it kind of over the middle of the field, those deep in breakers, which could help some of the wide receiving options with Leggett and with Teddarilla.
Yeah, I can go on Andy Dalton at 4,500. I could risk him with T-Mac or somebody and stack him as a really cheap stacking option. What I can't get out of my head, we saw it, we were at that game, the Bills and the Falcons, and what Bijan did to the Bills defense. And I can't get that out of my head. And then I'm thinking about Rico Dowdle. And if we didn't have a Chuba Hubbard here, we would have to be all over Dowdle. But
Yeah, I agree.
That share is like, what do we do with it?
Yeah, it just feels like both of them are kind of unplayable. I mean, Dowdle's still a 6,300 price tag, and then Chuba, you're not getting much savings at 53, so it's just too expensive for a shared backfield, in my opinion.
Even though we just remember what the Falcons did. And now we're just assuming that the Panthers are going to go in here throwing the ball around.
I think if you do want this game to be a surprise and you do want these Panthers values, the game script you're hoping is that the Bills just take it to them in the first quarter. And, they set up like 14-0, and you're getting a lot of up-tempo passing plays.
Yeah. The question is, if the Bills take it to them, how'd they do it? Did they run James Cook, or did they somehow pass the ball, or is it all on Josh Allen? Their wide receivers have been struggling too.
They have been. And, I mean, I think their leading wide receiver in that Falcons game was like 45 yards and like Josh Palmer. It has been very spread out. I do think they attack them on the ground here with James Cook primarily. And the one weakness, the primary weakness for that Carolina secondary has been their linebackers in coverage. So it does open up Kincaid, especially coming off that bye, a little bit healthier.
Yeah, Kincaid's one that I definitely like coming off that bye and being out a game. And at 4,300 on tight ends day, he could have a great day as well. I'm still looking not to pay that much. So I've got so many options at tight end that are under 4K this week that I haven't been paying over 4K.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. In that 4,500 to like 3,500 range is where I'm finding all my options. We've talked about the Carolina running backs, the wide receiving options. So we've seen Leggett kind of had a couple games in a row. Do you think that's here to stay? He had 11 targets compared to McMillan's only 5 last week.
I was very surprised at that. I don't know. Dalton came into that game. I guess it was kind of late, though. He only had 7 pass attempts. But who does Dalton have more of a chemistry with? He's played longer with Leggett. I mean, I guess Bryce Young had too. But I think we saw so much T-Mac at the beginning of the year. And now he just dropped $700 that I have to go back to him. I can't get it out of my head that Xavier Leggett dropping balls one after another. And if he drops a few passes, then they go a different direction.
Yeah, and when we look at kind of the background stats too, it is all McMillan. He is getting the air yard share, he's getting the target share. He has about a 24% target share for this team on the season. I think it was more of just a fluke, and maybe the Sauce Gardner having a great game for before he got injured. McMillan wasn't really ready for that, but he is getting all the work, and I think he is the better play moving forward.
Yeah, and the Bills are not strong on defending the wide receivers. So I like T-Mac to bounce in this one over Leggett. Although Leggett at 4K, I don't think you get a better play than that.
Yeah, and I think
at that price.
The one thing that goes in Leggett's favor is just the confidence. I feel like he kind of had that mental factor where he was a little checked out and he was dropping passes, kind of like Quentin Johnson, where I think they just kind of need to make some explosive plays and remind themselves and kind of build themselves up.
Yep, definitely. Let's move on to the Miami Dolphins at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are favored by 7, and the over-under is 44.5. It doesn't look like Penix is going to be the quarterback, I don't think. There's some question there. It needs to be monitored. But how does this whole game change for you if we see Kirk Cousins?
Honestly, I don't think it changes at all, really. I feel like it's going to be almost exactly the same. And the quarterbacks are not the show here. I mean, we saw like Penix did not really look good in his outing against San Francisco, and Tua looked even worse and had 3 interceptions and 3 fumbles against Cleveland last week. And when asked about Tua, Mike McDaniel was asked, well, he's still our starter, and hopefully we don't turn it over 100 times this week. So
oh my gosh.
That's his confidence in the quarterback.
Yeah, there's no love being lost there between those two. Tua's dropping to 4,800. I've got no interest in him and all of his interceptions. And then could you play Kirk Cousins at 4,400?
You could, but the main weakness for Miami has been on the ground. And so I think they're going to kind of lean on a couple talented backs there for Atlanta, and especially a backup filling in. You know, Kirk Cousins is ready. I think he'll fill in and look great. Maybe Kyle Pitts gets a slight bump there. But besides that, I'm not too interested in the wide receiver options here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Bijan.
Yeah.
And his 8,800. How are you not putting him in a lineup?
And that was kind of when I first looked at the slate. And even a couple weeks ago, I was circling this matchup, watching Rico Dowdle run for 200 yards on this Miami thing. I'm like, oh, you guys got Bijan in a couple weeks? And there is not a price too steep for that. I was kind of surprised. The more I started digging into what does the data say about the Falcons and their game plan in this game, I didn't really like it for Bijan's price. You know, it is a very steep $8,800 price tag. And when leading, the Falcons have basically been splitting carries 50-50. Bijan's got 47 carries when leading, and Algier has 42 carries. So I kind of have to tell myself a script where the Falcons are down or at least it's a neutral game script and it's a competitive game for Bijan to have that true breakout performance.
I can see that. Even last week when they lost to the 49ers, it was Bijan having 14 rush attempts and Algier 4. So they weren't splitting, but they were behind and they were doing a lot more passing. And that's why we also saw Kyle Pitts having a good day with 10 targets, which I don't think he's seen 10 targets in 2 years. So that was definitely a pretty big game for him, but they were behind. I don't see a game script where they're behind like they were last week. I think they're ahead, but if Bijan can break, it's the big runs. It's just like the Buffalo game all over again is what I'm afraid of here, that this is even easier than Buffalo, that Bijan can literally break a tackle and run into the end zone anytime you give him the ball. And so if
Yeah.
you give him the ball 7 times and he gets 2 touchdowns because he just broke it for 80 yards each time, then 8,800 looks like a pretty good price to pay. So I haven't been going without Bijan in my lineups.
I'm still taking him in some places, but I really like stacking him. I like telling myself, if I'm telling the story, that someone on this Miami side has to make it a competitive game and has to fight back a little bit. So I've been on Achan, really. I don't think it's going to be Waddle here, but Achan's interesting.
Achan is super interesting. I keep, zooming in on Bijan here, but Achan he's all the Dolphins have, and he dropped $800 this week. So he took a huge hit because he didn't have a good game last week in Cleveland. But this game, I feel like, sets up defensively better for him than the Browns defense. And now he's down at 7,300. He gets all the passes. I like him as well.
Yeah, they couldn't pass last week in that crazy, like, I think they were having wind gusts up to like 40 miles an hour and past that. So they could not pass the ball. Tua had 12 completions on the entire day. And normally Achan, he kind of builds up his work in the receiving game, and that's how he builds up his points.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot more work both on the ground and through the air for Achan.
I think so too. I don't think they look as bad as they did last week. I still think, Atlanta wins this game, and I'm more on the other side. It's very weird to talk about stacking both Bijan with the other running back and Achan in that game, or you just pick which side you're going to go on. But honestly, I have been playing both of them in some lineups.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we typically never have that correlation of the two running backs. You're like, well, there's just not enough game here for the both of them to succeed. But Achan, with him almost being a wide receiver, I think kind of negates that a little bit for that negative correlation.
I think both of these players define their team. That's who their team is. And we don't see that a whole lot where there is one player that is your team. Anyone else? Are you any interest in London or Waddle?
Not really on the wide receiving options. I think it's not really a great matchup here for those. Atlanta's defense has looked really good against the passing attack. But the other name I want to bring up, if you don't believe this is a competitive game and the Falcons just run away with it, Miami implodes, I like Algier in that script. If they are ahead, he has 3 touchdowns on the year already. It is a lot easier for him to get to that 12 fantasy point mark than Bijan to get to the 30. So I do like him as an option to completely fade this game and have a savings at running back at just a 4,800 price tag.
I do, and they use Algier a lot. I was actually looking to jump back to that Colts game for the second running back there because I felt like even last week I'm like, why are you still playing Jonathan Taylor? They were playing him to the very end, and it's like, could you take him out? Could we not hurt this guy?
Yeah.
And maybe the Falcons will play it smart if they have the big lead and put Bijan on the bench and play more Tyler Algier.
So I think that kind of wraps it up for this game.
Yeah. Let's move on to the New York Jets. Oh, that's hard to even say anymore. At the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati's favored by 6.5. Over-under is 44.5. I guess we're seeing Tyrod Taylor here, it looks like, and not Justin Fields.
Justin Fields was benched. He did come down in price. He also is going to be sitting there on the bench the entire time. So we're there with Tyrod Taylor at 4,500. Any interest?
No.
No.
I am not the Jets can make the Bengals look like a really good team this week at home. They're almost favored by a touchdown. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So
And
no.
honestly, I'm interested on the other side. I'm interested at Flacco at 5,400. We saw him air it out last week against the Steelers, 340 and 3, and this is not a good Jets defense.
It is not a good Jets defense. I just don't think they're going to need to air it out like they did against the Steelers. I think they probably can manage this game pretty good. I'm actually slightly interested in Chase Brown, their running back at 5,400. This could definitely be a game where the Bengals get up and they are running the ball more. Flacco is it?
I like Flacco. I think this is a fun game to stack up and like on the Cincy side because the Jets have already been bad. Sauce Gardner also had a concussion last game, so he probably is going to miss this game. Something to monitor on those injury reports and clue on. But if he's out, they just don't have a lot of talent on that secondary unit besides him. And Chase and Higgins, if Flacco just gets it in their hands, they can go nuclear any game.
They can. And Jamar Chase, 23 targets last week. That is crazy. It is clear. Let's give the ball to Jamar Chase and let him do whatever it is he does, which is get into the end zone. At 8,100, he's, getting added to that expensive list that of must-haves.
Yeah. So he's a fun, I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about the expensive running backs. If you flip it on your head and you pay up, I think he is a great pay up option here against the Jets.
Yeah, I think so too. Anyone on the Jet side that you're mildly interested in?
The only name I'm going to bring back up is Mason Taylor. Cincinnati is just terrible against the tight end position. I think we watched all three tight ends score for Pittsburgh last week. They are currently dead last in the league on average points allowed to the tight end position with 15 points. And so I am interested in Mason Taylor. He had 5 targets in just one half with Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor typically throughout his career has targeted the tight end position. So I think it works well.
I think it works well too. The Cincinnati Bengals aren't the strongest defense. We're giving them a lot of credit right now in just shutting down this Jets team. But the Jets are struggling for sure. But I do like Mason Taylor, 3,500. He's another tight end. Maybe it is going to be crazy tight end day, even though we've got so many missing.
Yeah, he's a fun one to add into your tight end touchdown parlay.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to have one of those. Let's move on to the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia is favored by 7. Over-unders 43.5. These two teams just faced each other in week 6. Giants stunned us all, winning on that Thursday night, winning 34-17. How's this game going to go? Do you like Jackson Dart or Jalen Hurts?
I probably don't. I think we see a more defensive game, not as exciting as the Giants upset from the last time. I think it is very hard when you're playing a division rival 3 times in 2 weeks. You know, you guys already know each other well, but now you have brand new tape and you didn't have a lot of time to implement any new plays there. And so I think we probably see the under in this game. I'm not really interested in stacking up both of them. Also for Philly's passing attack, they were kind of remembering they could pass against their own will last week. There was multiple times where there was nothing happening. The play concept didn't work, but Hurts is sitting there for 5 seconds in the pocket and just trying to ad lib and telling AJ Brown on the fly where to go, and that was kind of those broken plays.
And Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was like all of a sudden, hey, we can pass. I'm not sure though that I'm on the under on this game. It felt 2 weeks ago like the Giants made the Eagles look bad, and I can see this being a revenge game. And if it's a revenge game and I just remembered, I have this great group of players in Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, then maybe I want to make you look a little silly, and maybe I want to put my foot down and let you know that you aren't as good as you think you are with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo.
Yeah.
And they run it up. So I have some interest in Jalen Hurts, because if you think they're going to run it up, they're not going to do it without a few tush pushes into the end zone. Although, if they watch what they actually did 2 weeks ago when they let Saquon Barkley rush pretty well in the first half and then give up on him in the second half, then maybe they're just going to keep giving Saquon Barkley the ball. So I have interest in Saquon. Any
I think it is. Yeah, I am very interested in Saquon. I think it's kind of fun if you just like basically put the blindfold and try to forget everything we've seen this season. Then you walk into the slate and you're like, I can get Derrick Henry at 6K and only 75 for Saquon. That's awesome. Let's go. So that's a
Yeah.
fun way to kind of go about it. But yeah, I'm probably leaning away from this game in general.
Okay. I'm leaning towards the Eagles side, just, you know, making a statement.
Yeah.
This would be a statement game for him. And because of that, I think Saquon needs a big game. They've needed their players. We were talking a minute ago about confidence. And last week they got some confidence for their wide receivers and for the passing game with Jalen Hurts. And that feels a lot better with both of those wide receivers coming in with over 30 fantasy points. Now they need to get that confidence in Saquon Barkley because you're not going to win a Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley leading this team. So if they can get him running and they can get the confidence, then I like him to pull through here. And you always have to talk about, Dallas Goedert. He's a favorite. He wasn't last week, but now that it's tight ends day, maybe he will be.
Yeah. And I do like that. We always like our home favorite running backs. So it's a good play this week.
Yeah, Barkley is. Let's move on to San Francisco 49ers at the Houston Texans. Houston is somehow favored by 1.5 points. Over-under is 41.5. This is the only bet that I've made early in the week. I took the point. Well, I didn't take the points because you could actually get the 49ers for positive money in this game, which is crazy. So I took the 49ers money line.
Yeah, I don't know which Houston Texans team they've been watching, but I do not see them as a favorite at all here, even at home.
I don't. For a minute, looking into this game, I thought the Texans had a bye, and then I realized, oh no, they just played so late on Monday night that I didn't actually get to watch that game.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't have one of those this week. I don't think we see Brock Purdy return. Mac Jones is getting the win, so why, force him into it? So let's talk about quarterbacks. We talked a little bit a minute ago about defining teams, and Christian McCaffrey defines his team. I'm out on CJ Stroud. I'm out on Mac Jones. Neither one of them. CJ Stroud's struggling. Mac Jones doesn't define the 49ers.
Yeah. CJ Stroud had his 120-point game a year, so he's got another year. He's on cooldown still.
He's on cooldown. And he's going to be doing it without Nico Collins this week, who has a concussion. McCaffrey.
Yeah, we
McCaffrey's
finally
another
saw
one.
those touchdowns come. We talked about it a little bit, but he got 2 of them last game, and he got that 40-point performance. How do you like him here in this spot?
I like him again this week. He is the team. I like him more if we don't see Ricky Pearsall return. If we see Pearsall return, I like him less. But as long as Pearsall stays out, George Kittle was blocking last week, so I don't know if there's something more on the line, if that was his role, but they weren't passing to him. They didn't do a whole lot in the pass game last week other than to McCaffrey. Everything literally went to McCaffrey.
Yeah, and for Kittle, I mean, he came back from injury, but that we always think from a fantasy perspective, and we love to see these amazing plays from Kittle, but Kittle is just as talented as a blocker, and he was freeing up those plays and making critical blocks for McCaffrey.
So McCaffrey's going to have to be the team again to pay off 9K in this game. I think the question is, can Houston do anything? And Vegas is telling us they can. Vegas is telling us they're going to win. If I get on board with somehow Houston scores points, then I think the 49ers are going to score more points, and this is a competitive game. And if this is a competitive game, I want McCaffrey.
I can see it from that angle, but honestly, I don't really know how Houston scores here. I think they have a very talented defense still. I think that's the only reason why the game was even remotely close in Seattle. But I don't really like them to keep pace here, especially without their one mismatch for wide receiver without Nico. And both of the running backs, I mean, Woody Marks and Nick Chubb have been very unimpressive, and I don't think they can really take advantage of the injuries for San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree. Any other pieces here that you do like? I like Dalton Schultz, the Texans tight end at 3.3K. He had 10 targets last week.
He did. Almost 100 yards, too.
Yeah, maybe he can get involved on National Tight End Day.
And That is something that Stroud does. He looks over the middle of the field, and something that the Falcons didn't really take advantage of with Fred Warner for the 49ers being injured is it is going to lead to some more mismatches of tight ends against linebackers. And Fred Warner was kind of very talented in dropping back into pass protection. So I think there will be some opportunities there.
Yeah, I think on top of that, the Texans are just going to have to lean on Schultz with no Nico Collins there and a bunch of, either rookie wide receivers or not their top wide receivers. There is a lot of value in the wide receivers here because they will be throwing the ball, I think.
Yep.
All right, last game on the slate. Cleveland Browns at the New England Patriots. Patriots are favored by 7, over under 40.5. Drake May, Dylan Gabriel. I don't think this is Drake May's week, although he had a great performance last week.
He did. This might be our first week where we actually see under 20 fantasy points for Drake May. I feel like he's been on a run of just like 6 or 7 games just strung together with 20 fantasy points. He's finding ways to get it done. Probably brighter days ahead for Dylan Gabriel, but not this week.
Yeah, not this week. Exactly. Quinshon Judkins, he came through with his 3 touchdowns last week. Do you like him?
He did come through for us. I mean, we brought him up as the number 1 play, but that was partly because of that Miami matchup. And against this New England Patriots front, I do not really like him. They are one of the toughest teams to run against. They have one of the highest stuff rates for rushes. So I am not targeting Judkins here.
Yeah, this is just a game that I think I'm out on both sides. They both have good defenses, if not great defenses. They have a lot of talent on the defensive side, and I just don't see that offensively they overcome that in a big way, which is what we're looking for.
The only name I'll really bring up as far as options for the flex is Harold Fannin. None of the wide receiving options were good for Cleveland last week, but we talked about that. It was weird weather situations. But before that, the tight end position, Dylan Gabriel was just hyper targeting it. And if we still have Njoku out, I think Harold Fannin is going to have a much better day this week against the Patriots.
All right, I can go there. Another tight end. We've got a lot of tight ends. Take your pick at tight end. He's 4,400, so he cost a little bit more. I'm still all over Dalton Schultz at 3,300. Let's move into lineups. Who you going with?
Okay, so I kind of structured my lineups off the key decision points of those expensive running backs. And in the first one, I am fading the expensive running backs. I'm having no Bijan, but we talked about Algier as a fun pivot. And then I'm bringing back Derrick Henry for 6K. Not in the same game, but both home running backs. And then to complement this, I want the Cincinnati Bengals, and I want that talented wide receiver duo of Chase and Higgins to pair with Flacco. And then I'm also bringing Roma Dunze in the flex and Igbuka. So I feel like I love those wide receivers. The 4 of them can just put up crazy points this week. Mason Taylor helps me afford it at 3,500 in that same game and kind of had that correlation play. And then complementing with the 49ers defense.
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about defenses, but the 49ers defense is one of the better ones that you're not paying a whole lot for at 2,900.
In my other lineup, I end up going with a Denver stack and having Jake Ferguson as the Dallas option that we need, and just saying those corners are very successful against CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, and that Ferguson's kind of that mismatch that's left over. And then having that same game running back correlation play we talked about of Achan and Bijan, and then affording it with Rashid Shaheed, and then the Bengals defense, because if the Bengals aren't going to show up in the lineup, then I think that is because the Jets just failed to show up to the game on Sunday.
that definitely could be. They're very interesting. I took a slightly different approach. I somehow crammed in McCaffrey, Bijan, and Achan all into one lineup. So I paid for all my running backs other than Jonathan Taylor because I don't know that they should take him out and they should bench him and give him a break. So I paid for everybody else. Everyone that's like defining their team, I paid for there. How do I afford that? Well, I've got the stack of Andy Dalton and T-Mac, those two together. I'm just not going on the Buffalo side. They're going to spread it around. Hopefully Josh Allen doesn't come back to bite me and get, 4 touchdowns in that game. That they just spread it around, or it's defensive and it's all good and it's just, Andy Dalton and T-Mac that I need, along with those 3-star running backs. And then I'm bringing in Rashid Shaheed. You could swap that in with Olave. It gets a little bit complicated with Olave because he's $1,000 more. So then you have to downgrade somebody else. I took Sterling Shepard. You can swap in Tez Johnson if you like him better because they're basically the same price. And then my tight end is Dalton Schultz. I love Dalton Schultz in that matchup with the injury to Nico Collins. I had to really punt this one at defense and go with the Giants and just hope that that game stays low and doesn't hit that kind of craziness. So that's the one where I paid for all the running backs and took them all and hope they have it's National Running Back Day and not Tight End Day. The other one that I put together is a combination of Rattler and Olave for the Saints with Tez Johnson in there as well a little, so bringing back a little bit with Tampa Bay. But I think Tampa Bay kind of holds on to that game and we see more passing on the Saints side. And then paying for Barkley, that Barkley finally gets his day. I also on the Tampa Bay side like White at running back. So he's a moderately priced running back that also gets used as a wide receiver. And with the injuries to Evan and Godwin, they will lean on him a little bit more to take up some of that space. I've got T-Mac in here again. I think this is going to be his week against the Bills. Again, Dalton Schultz, and I'm also paying for McCaffrey again. McCaffrey is just so strong and just such a defining member of that 49ers team. It changes. I would reconsider these if Pearsall's in, but I kind of think he's going to miss another week. And then I took the 49ers defense too.
I like them. Also, just in general, in this slate, this feels like finally we have a slate where you can go 100 different ways. In the past couple weeks, there's just been some key plays that everyone is locked into, and they've all hit. I mean, we talked about Judkins, we talked about Rashee Rice, but those roster percentages were crazy. This slate, I feel like we finally have the DFS where we have permission to get a little weird and play those like unique plays. So I'm excited to build up probably a lot more lineups in the next couple days.
I am too. This also feels like one where there are a couple games, particularly the Tampa Bay New Orleans, where I may just go all in on that game. And we haven't seen a game where if that you needed like 5 or 6 players from that game to be successful. So far this season, it has been pretty much you need to pick the right players and the players that are the best players and not the game that is the best game. So maybe it changes this week.
Yeah, I'm excited. And also, come join us on our player props episode. We have been doing extremely well to start the season, so hopefully we can keep that going strong.
Yeah, that one will be out on Friday morning, so jump over and listen to it. That's all for the Week 8 main slate. Hope you enjoyed the game review and you're going to enjoy making your lineups this week. Leave your comments with your favorite plays and sleep in on Sunday because there's no early 9:30 game.